Hello, and this is a video on what I believe is the best cheap crossbow you can buy. It's not the cheapest crossbow on the market, nor is it the best crossbow, but it's the best cheap one. So out of all the cheap crossbows that are available, for less than £100 in the UK, imagine $100 and $150 in the US, this is one of the best ones you can get. And what this is it goes under a lot of names, but it's normally called the Jaguar. And these are £175 crossbows normally by default, although you can get them in £150 configurations by default. And when we say the pounds, we're referring to the draw weight of the crossbow, how much energy it is when it's fully pulled back and cocked. And yeah, for the price they're very good, and I'm going to go over the factors why I think, for that very low end price, not when you're going up to Barnett levels of money or anything like that, why these are very good. So if we start off, these are basically made by East Asian companies. I think most of them were based in Taiwan. There's one called Polang and one called Mankung, and they both seem to blend over a bit with which crossbows each one makes. But there was a very good old crossbow called the Barnett, I think it was the Wildcat. And originally they made these crossbows to be sort of a 1-1 reproduction of them, I assume without a license. And they did well, but then they improved them over time. And so while Barnett now makes a lot more fancy sort of crossbows, like compounds and ones with other features, the Asian companies carried on making things much closer to the original Wildcat with a few improvements. And that's why this is often called the Firecat as well. So what you basically get is a crossbow with a stock. Some of the models have different stocks. An ambidextrous safety on the new ones, which is very good. So it's exactly the same. If you're shooting it right-handed, you'd flick that off that way. If you're shooting it, with your left hand somehow, because I'm not very good at doing that because I don't shoot left-handed, you could do it like that. So that's pretty much it. You've got a replaceable prod, which is very good because it means that you can fit whichever prod you want power-wise, which is one of the reasons I think it is the best of the cheap crossbows. Because basically this is a £105 limb I've got in this one, but you can go online, find the limbs from £40 up to I think the £175 ones, and basically so it's normally like 40, 80, 105, 120, 150, £175. Then you basically just install the limb and restring the crossbow and you're good to go with that power. So by default this has iron sights, but you can buy this included with scopes and red dots and things. And you have this rail that's not on some of the other crossbows, which is good, that lets you adjust the height using this, rather than having to have a sight where you do it or zeroing the scope as much. So that's good. You can sort out elevation with a dial on the sort of, essentially, if you want to call it, the upper receiver of the crossbow. So the complaints I've heard about this, although I've not really experienced them much myself, is that a lot of people say the safety isn't very good, which isn't something I've experienced. If you actually go back to the previous generations of these, like the very first Firecat crossbow I had, the safety was nowhere near as good. It was only on the right side and it was like this sort of switch that stuck up. Sometimes it wouldn't sit flush with the crossbow. And often once you'd cocked it, what would happen would be that it wouldn't fully cock, and you had to sort of wrestle around with the string to get it to either go back or sort of sit firmly in so the safety would engage properly. And that's not happened to me at all with any of these newer model type ones. And a lot of people complain about the trigger on them, but you can see it's a bit shaky, but this doesn't seem to affect accuracy. You can still, if you want to, very slowly sort of squeeze the trigger and it'll go back fine. Yeah, it does sort of sit a bit loose. Once the string's cocked it sits a bit tighter, but as we said, these are crossbows that are under £100. Normally they retail anywhere between £50 and £100, so having a trigger like that is probably something you're going to expect for the price point. I'm sure on a Barnett, an Excalibur or any of those sort of brands that those triggers sit much better, but those normally cost sort of anywhere between 3 and 10 times the price to something like this. So if you want to see videos of this, I won't include any shooting footage on this video because I have loads on my channel, so you can see it in all the different configurations. Just go on the playlist and there'll definitely be a link to the playlist in this video, and it will be saved into the playlist of all my sort of crossbow type videos. Then look for any of like £150, £175 and you'll be able to find videos on them. So yeah, the Firecat crossbow is probably the best cheap crossbow you can get for your money.